Hi guys, my name is Rusfaiza. So today I'm going to share with you about the Japanese cuisine, which is a Japanese food that is famous all over the world. But this cuisine, which is more than just a tasty meal, it says a lot about Japanese culture. So let's get it. So first thing first, we need to know about the story of Japanese food. One of the first things you will notice about a Japanese meal is that traditionally all the different elements are spread into small dishes. It used to be considered bad form to have all the food in one bowl or on one plate. This is dining style that originated in the Kamakura period, which is mainly adopted from the classical Chinese style of serving food as well as the way Buddhist tea ceremony is served. In the past, Japanese nobility served each dish on a napkin-like platter called zen. These were brought in one by servants. They are quite like a tiny dining tables, and you might see a similar style of serving ethic at the traditional Japanese inns where you sit on the floor on a tatami mat. In Japanese history, the poor everyday has always eaten a diet of rice and fish as Japan is an island nation. Only the rich people could afford more exotic foods. Funnily enough, however, although we can see Japan as a fish-eating nation up until 1920s, Japan was actually 19% vegetarian and most of the people only ate fish on a very festive occasion. Some speculate this is due to Buddhist teaching, others said it was merely a result of a poverty. It was true because during the Kofun period around 675, Buddhism had come to Japan as a Chinese import, and Emperor Temu declared that anyone who ate cattle, horse, a dog, monkey or chicken at any time from 4th to 9th month of the year would be sentenced to death. In 752, Empress Koken went a step further and banned all the fishing. Difficult to imagine in the Japan that we know today. She did, however, and provide rice provision to all the fishermen who had lost their livelihood through the ban, and prior to the infrastructure, rice was difficult and expensive to import from the areas where it's grown best. And in history, peasants often blended their rice with millet for a more substantial and energy-rich dish. Then meat made a return in this century as China and Korea influenced Japan a little less, although the trade continued and the Japanese food really came into its own in this period, like the grilled fish, steamed vegetables, pickles become more popular with the nobility. And the next major changes that we can see for the Japanese cuisine was during the Kamakura period, where many of the nobility fell to samurai and military rule from the poorer classes. It was considered distasteful to host the lavish banquet of the past, and instead, dishes like jellyfish, umaboshi pickles, rice become popular for the simplicity and availability to the everyday person. The second one, we need to know what is the importance of cuisine in the culture. So first is Japanese food preparation. In Japan, great pride is taken in one's work, which is why Japanese food is cooked to perfection. Instead of eating until you are starved, Japanese cuisine is often presented in a small, delicate portion so you can savor your meals, and is carefully selected and balance all the flavor. The second one is Japanese culture and ethic. As in many Asian cultures, chopsticks are the usual cutlery for the eating, and you can show that you are finished by placing your chopstick on the edge of your rice bowl or on a chopstick block provided. While you may be tempted to stick your chopstick upright in a bowl of rice, this is too similar to the appearance of incense used after someone's death and is considered unlikely and offensive. Okay, next is Yoshoku, which is this is the influence or a Western influence on the Japanese cuisine. Following the Meiji Restoration in 1867, as eating meat had long been prohibited prior to the Meiji Restorations, and the introduction of Western cuisine focused on the meat dishes signified a radical transformation in the food culture. After the announcement, Japanese government officials, intellectual, business, and other elite started to consume Western food en masses. Thus, the announcement of the emperor's consumption of meat created a favorable condition for the spread of Western cuisine and the development of the fusion dishes. And Western food came to be associated with a strong army and consequently a strong nation. Soldiers were provided with Western-style meals from the early years of the Meiji period. The Japanese familiarity with Western food among young men who had served in the military and many college students ensured the demand for the fusion cuisine. And one of the obstacles to the introduction of Western cuisine was the difficulty to obtain ingredients. And now we're going to the interesting part, which is the unique things about the Japanese food culture. So the first one is traditional restaurants are run by the chef and his apprentice. Traditionally, chefs in training are not allowed to handle the fish or meat for years. The primary chef creates all the food while the apprentice does other tasks like clean, preparation, and serving tables. The second one is miso soup should be treated like a drink. Miso soup is a popular dish served at Japanese restaurants. It has a cloudy broth, small pieces of tofu, and a seaweed. While it's a normal for the most people to eat soup with a spoon, this variety should be sipped right from the bowl. And tofu and seaweed left at the bottom of the bowl should be eaten with chopsticks once the broth is gone. The third one is the dishes have a significance. In Japan, the dishes are nearly as important as the food they contain. The cooks are careful to choose the right colors, pattern for the meal they are preparing. Plates and bowls are often seasonal, hand-painted, and have a significant history. Next one is sushi should not be dipped in a soy sauce. The sticky texture of the sushi rice is like that for a reason. By dipping a roll of sushi in soy sauce, the rice becomes too soft, losing its important texture on it. Also, there shouldn't be any piece of rice left over in the soy sauce dish, and if you want some sauce, make sure to dip the fish part of the roll and not the rice. Next is leaving a messy plate is a rude thing. After a meal, you should not crumple up your napkin and leave them on the empty plate. For many Japanese people, this is considered rude and show a lack of respect for the staff. Instead, diners are expected to neatly fold the napkin and leave them next to their plate or throw them into a bin that is available there. In conclusion, it came to a point that food was a way for people to identify themselves with their culture and their roots. Hence, this helped Japanese food to be considered as essential components of their culture. Therefore, it must be protected as a world heritage. Dishes in Japan vary a lot from region to region, and every city in Japan encourages to have their own traditional food as a way of recognition.